where you're just not even, people aren't even home, or they're home, but they're not present because they're looking at other things. And many times it's because they feel like there's a financial stress that they've got to continue to go out and do more. You've got to go out and make sure that you get even more of the bonus. But the problem is when you're earning more of the bonus and you're not a real estate professional and you don't own a business and your spouse isn't a real estate professional, you're going to end up paying another X percentage on every dollar that you earn.
There's a difference between a dream chaser and a dream catcher.
Thanks all for tuning in to Dream Catchers, where we make things happen. Dream Catchers was formally launched to unlock the hidden potential in successful, self-motivated individuals who desire to take their life's work to the next level but need support to evolve. We are a collective group of professionals with various backgrounds that use our talents to assist those individuals in realizing their wildest dreams by providing education, inspiration, and direction. This podcast is where we share the lessons we've learned along the way to catching our dreams and give you some context around the how and the why to each approach to put you further ahead on the journey to catching your dream. Are you ready?
Welcome to the Dream Catchers podcast. I'm your host, Jerome. I got my man, Billy Keels, in from Barcelona, Spain. And I can tell you right now, you're in for a treat. Billy, they didn't understand what we were saying. How are you, sir?
Mr. Myers, I am doing very well. I am very happy to see you. Again, I'm looking forward to sharing another conversation with you. Every single time they're value add. And I have to admit, I'm also too a little bit nervous, heart's pounding and stuff like that. So a little bit nervous, but hey, it is what it is, man. When you're in the presence of Mr. Myers, these things happen, man.
I appreciate you showing up with such transparency and vulnerability, and that is probably a great indicator that amazing things are going to happen. And so, you know, I know you. I consider you a friend, an advisor, a confidant. But for the listeners, they may be asking, man, who is this guy and what is he speaking? Is it Spanish? Is it Catalan? Like, we have no idea who this guy is. So, Billy, break it down for the listeners. Who are you? Kind of what you've been working on here recently, and we'll really dive in and unpack some things today because I am just so grateful for the opportunity to pull some wisdom from you.
Yes. Would you allow me to do one thing first, though?
Absolutely.
Because you're a very giving person, and you are always looking to make impact, and you're almost always making positive impact on others. And I know that you have a very, very loyal audience. And just in case, because you do this out of love, you do this because you were looking to continue to make impact. And by the way, everybody, I'm now a fellow podcaster. So if you have not had a chance, please just take a second, leave Mr. Myers an honest written review as well as a rating, because I know that he takes every single bit of input that you give to make this program better for you. So I just wanted to share that first and foremost with everybody. And so hopefully that's okay with you, Mr. Myers. And you asked me a little bit about who I am. And up until recently, I had a very good conversation with a trusted friend of mine recently. And I used to say, I'm just a regular old guy from Columbus, Ohio. And the truth is I am a guy from Columbus, Ohio, Midwest through and through, who over the last, I don't know, I guess 48 years, something like that, has had an opportunity to not only come from a family of, three brothers, me and my brother and sister, parents who worked really, really hard, watched them struggle financially. So sometimes making kind of really difficult decisions by the end of the month, like, are we going to pay this bill or that bill? And so I knew what it was like to really struggle financially. And so that kind of set the stage first and foremost. And then we moved around. By the time I was 12, we'd lived in like 3 different states, probably 7 or 8 different houses. Parents ended up getting divorced, but always thought to tell us and show us that it was really important that we get an education, so that we were always the kids that we were in really good school districts, but I watched my friends have all the things that my parents couldn't afford. And then once I finally was able to start working, like at 14, I got my moped. And so then I started working really, really hard and all that kind of stuff. Went to college. In high school, I got really good grades. In college, I got really good grades. I was what you would call an A student. That translated into 2 college degrees. So I was really happy about that. I went to college in the southwest of Ohio, a place called Miami University. And then after that, Jerome, I think you and I've talked about this before, but my life kind of changed because I was planning on I got 2 degrees, and my dream job was to work at P&G, Procter and Gamble. And not only did I get turned down once, I got rejected twice, and that crushed me because I was an A student, right? I got really good grades. I studied hard. I did all the things I was supposed to do. And that was probably the first major rejection thing that happened in my life, and it happened twice. But that same friend that I was mentioning earlier, like he and I were talking, and he told me about this job. It was amazing. Like these people were traveling all around the country and around the world, excuse me. And I applied for a role. I think there's probably 4,000 or 5,000 people that applied, and 23 of us, I think, got the job. And I was working in a company based out of St. Louis, Missouri, and had a chance to work and travel throughout 58 countries by the time I was 26. And it was amazing because we were doing like 5-star kind of hotels, resorts, things like that, stuff that this guy from Columbus, Ohio had never even thought of. I remember getting turned down service one time, and I thought someone had broken into my hotel room. And that was just, that was wild. But, all that stated, after 5 years, 58 countries, I decided I wanted to do like a 1-year sabbatical. So I was accepted to university in Paris at the Sorbonne, and while I was there, I didn't want to go back because I had learned French language and culture. I learned more about wine, and I learned how to salsa dance. So I do salsa dance every once in a while. Maybe a little less wine nowadays, but at the time, the wine helped the salsa dancing. I didn't really want to go back to the States after that. And so I kept working. I was fortunate enough to start working in a big multinational, got into the IT space, which is really cutting edge, right? I got into IT, and it was great. And that same kind of A student mentality that I had working hard and continue to work and move up the ladder was happening again, right? I was in Europe and was doing this. I was in the south of France, and I got to a point where I was sent to build a team in Italy. And so I got that sales team built up, and then I ended up going back to France. I was doing everything I was told, right? I was just continuing to move up and get promoted and do all that kind of great stuff. I met a nice woman who was in France, but she's from Spain. I eventually ended up moving to Spain, now live in Barcelona, where I've been for the last 15 years, going on 16 years. Got married, got 2 kids, and also up until recently, like I said, was moving up and got promoted and was always doing the things that A students do. And I realize now that I'm a recovering perfectionist, and after 26 years of working in multinational and being part of top talent programs and being part of winner circles and all these types of things and top achievers, it's time for me to move on and do something different. And so now I am focusing on more time with my family, quality time with my family. I've had some things go on with my father recently that really helped me to get a lot of things clear, priorities. More time with my wife, my kids. They're really crushing me in video games recently, and I'm just enjoying that so much. And also working on serving a very particular client and helping them to get to their goals and their dreams much faster. So yeah, it's probably a long-winded story, but that's a little bit about who I am, kind of what I've done to a certain extent. And now I get a chance to speak to you and share a little bit more of my story. So
it's amazing how you made something so complicated sound so simple. So wait, I got to get this straight. You took a 1-year sabbatical in Paris that turned into 20 plus years living outside of the US?
Yes, sir. 21 years, 3 countries, a marriage, 4 languages, 2 children later. Yeah, that 1-year sabbatical has been pretty cool.
So what was it about Paris that made you say, I'm not going back? Like, did you leave the company that you were working for and all that? Or like, how did this work?
Yeah, so I was working in the company 5 years. At the end of that 5 years, it was time for me to go, and I just did a 1-year sabbatical. So it was literally I'd worked and saved some money, and I had this really negative experience that happened in 1995. And I told myself, because I lived overseas for the very first time, and I told myself if I ever had an opportunity to live overseas again, that I was going to take it, because I kind of had this moment of a failure moment in my life. And fortunately for me, about 5.5 years later, I had another opportunity to live overseas. And so that's when Paris was on the map. I had this really goal focused, like goal oriented. So I wanted to, like I mentioned before, I wanted to learn French language and culture. I wanted to learn how to salsa dance, and I wanted to learn more about wine. And that's what I did. Like, that's literally what I did all the time. I had met great, fantastic people. I studied a lot because that's what A students do, or recovering perfectionists. You're constantly studying, trying to learn the next thing. Tasting wine and dancing salsa in the evenings. And I loved it so much. And I realized, like, after 6 months that I was making so many mistakes. I had to get outside of my comfort zone, because I moved to Paris, I didn't know how to even say my name is. I couldn't say je m'appelle Billy. I couldn't do any of that kind of stuff, right? And it was through making lots of mistakes, finally letting myself feel uncomfortable, or feeling comfortable with being uncomfortable, like having people look at me like, what are you saying? And all this kind of stuff. And after 6 months is when I decided, wow, I wanted to really kind of stay here, because I felt the growth that was happening. And I was very fortunate because I had wonderful relationships with some very influential people, and had a chance to have a number of different job interviews, and eventually found the job that helped me to stay in France. I really wanted to stay in Paris, but I was unable to do that, and ended up moving to the south of France in a town called Montpellier. So,
Wow. So, I mean, for most people, that's kind of mind blowing, because they're going to say, well, what about your siblings? What about your parents? And then you mentioned kind of at the highest level, like something was going on with your dad's health. And so now you're so far away. Like, what if something happens? I think that's probably most people's worst fear is I can't get to you because my flight is, I don't know, 10 hours, 12 hours maybe?
yeah, I mean, you mean just in terms of like, how was was I nervous, or was I in state of trepidation, or sorry, just to make sure I understand?
Yeah, I think people would say that they can't do it
Oh,
because of all of the things that could go wrong because they're across a ocean.
yeah. So, and that's true. It's one of those things, even to this day, like my family, when they call me, they have to preface it, depending on what time of day they call me, they have to let me know that everything's okay. Like, before they even say hello, like, everything is fine. Just because I've been through situations where we've lost family members, there have been major medical conditions, and they happen to happen around the same time. So that's something that I live with constantly. It's something that my family lives with constantly. I realize that I have missed many events in life, and it's because of the decisions that I made. And at the same time, you always have trade-offs. Would I trade what I've done for anything? No, because I'm very happy with where we are now in life, where I am in life, where we are as a family in life. And it hasn't always been easy, man. I mean, there's always difficulties that happen, but it's part of a trade-off. It's part of a trade-off. And actually, ironically, Jerome, I can see my family in the US more frequently, meaning like my mom, dad, brother, and sister, living in Europe, because up until now, I had much more vacation to be able to travel to the States. Like, the flights were longer, but I actually had 5 weeks of vacation, which people are like, what? And yeah, so that was maybe a blessing in disguise as well. And now it's really up to me. I flew back to the States a couple of weeks ago because I found a really nice economical flight, and flew back and just kind of hung out with my dad and my brother and sister and stepmom for like 5 days. Just kind of chilled out. It was nice.
All right, so we're like 15 minutes in. We haven't used the word yet. We haven't used the R word yet. Billy, you retired in your 40s. Tired.
Yep. Yeah. It was time to move on. Time to move on from corporate life. You know, it's ironic because the last time we were here and had a conversation, I was a happy corporate employee. Like, I really enjoyed the corporate game. I was very, very good at it. At the same time, when I look back on it, you know, there was always like the corporate thing was running in the back of my mind. Always. I consider myself to be a dad who was present. At the same time, I mean, you were one of the first people I told. Like, I missed my son's 3rd birthday, and that's something that marked my life and will mark me forever. Because it's one of those things. You leave your 3-year-old child when you want to be there to blow out candles. And I saw him in the morning, woke my wife up, woke his 1-year-old brother up. And when they're blowing out the candles, I was at a meeting in Frankfurt. I think I told you last time, I didn't remember what the meeting was. And to this day, I don't remember what that meeting was about. I know that I missed my son's birthday. And I know that was a catalyst to make sure that I never did that again. Because when you're traveling and you're preparing for meetings, or you're there with your family members, but you're not really there because you're looking at your phone and you're figuring out what's the next email that's coming in, and you've got to action this. And then after that email comes in, you've got to figure out, okay, well, this call's coming in, and hang on, I'll be there at the dinner table, but hang on, I got to finish this other thing. And so with more perspective, you start to realize that, yeah, that stuff it is important. And my son probably won't remember the 3-year-old, like him being 3, but I'm sure there are pictures that happen and I'm not in those pictures, right? And those are things that are really important to me. They've always been important to me as a father, as a husband, as a son, as a brother. And yeah. And so going through those things, but yes, there's the retirement from the corporate life has happened. Since then, still, 90 some odd days out, I still kind of have those little twinges every once in a while. I want to look at my phone, see how many emails are coming in, want to make that call to people. But I'm at a point now where it's nice. Life is slower when you're not in the corporate life. You can actually spend more time diving deeper into things, really looking at things, analyzing, and having time to strategically think and then execute on things. And that's also very, very nice. I was a happy corporate employee and a happier retiree from corporate life.
So, all right. Most people don't even fathom the concept of retiring before 65 at this point in life.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you do that?
One was just being clear that I knew, I guess, well, first and foremost, I wasn't really sure. I didn't have a plan to retire early, right? Because I'm someone who's a recovering perfectionist, right? I mentioned before, as an A student, you do what you're told. And then when you get the results and you get the recognition, you get the dopamine hit. So you want to kind of get into that you get into that cycle. And that's what I was doing until the year 2000 happened. And I was finally figured out, okay, I watched my parents struggle forever, but I was saving money, and then I learned how to invest. And then 2000 happened, and then I lost money in the stock market because of .com. And then 2008, when we lost 33% of my portfolio, and I think you and I've talked about that before, that really changed something because it wasn't a matter of not being able to have control. I didn't have any control. Like my financial life, which was the thing that was really at the time the most important thing to me, I didn't have any control over it. And it was, happened once, shame on me, happened twice, shame on you. And so then that's when I started looking, all right, how can I go out and start to take more control? That I started investing initially in real estate. That was something that worked out really, really well. And as I started getting more control over the certain outcomes of my life, then I thought, wow, okay, well, I want to do this, but I was working a day job. And because I was someone who is enjoying that, I was recognized and was paid much more than I probably should have. But in that type of industry, as a software sales and software sales leader and executive in a company, I was in that in that loop and was in that rat race, if you will. And so what the investing in real estate initially started was it started to help me open my mind. And so for a period of 9 years, I worked day and night, like up in the morning at 5 o'clock or before, many times working on my business, working on myself, then rarely there or traveling. Many times I was traveling a lot or would be at home. And then in the evenings we'd get back and then work until really, really late. But it was 9 years of really, really hard work. And I started recognizing at a certain point that I could have more control over my life. I was actively investing, so I had much more control. I was gaining much more knowledge. And then I got to a point, Jerome, where I didn't know, like I was buying these smaller multifamily properties, and I was I bought a mobile home park, right? All living from Barcelona and buying all of the assets that were helping me to start to create this freedom to choose what I really wanted to do. And then I got to a point where I was like, someone was talking to me about this thing called passive investing. And I was like, oh, hang on a second. You can give somebody $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 and they can actually do all the work. And I can keep working at my day job where I was actually getting the best return on my time. And so as that started happening, I started realizing, okay, well, hang on a second. This things that I'm managing actively, even when I'm working my day job, this is really starting to give me more control. I then started recognizing that there were other vehicles that I could use that would start to generate income while I was working in my day job and had my own properties. And then I started realizing, oh, hang on a second, I can actually get more control over my life overall, realize where we wanted to go with our family and our kids and stuff like that. And I started recognizing that I was having this particular problem because I'm someone who is not a real estate professional. That's an IRS designation if people aren't familiar with that. And when I realized that I was investing in all of these things and I was having this particular challenge because there's something called losses. There's passive losses, and I was having like a lot of passive losses. And I realized if I could just unlock some of that and use that capital to invest in other things, that would help create an even faster path for me to have the freedom to choose what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. And so I started combining these different vehicles, different assets that were accelerating my ability to get to my freedom to choose. And I chose to continue to go into the corporate life, and I did that probably 3 years too long. Meaning too long because I didn't have to keep going in. I was going in because I enjoyed it and I was enjoying the game. But all in all, there was no master plan. But once I started realizing that I was taking action, some of that information was imperfect information, but I started seeing the results from investing actively, passively investing with other people, and then unlocking a lot of this capital that was stuck. And it just accelerated my path. And then when things happened with my father in the latter part of last year, the fourth quarter of 2021, it was time for me to go. I realized that, I really was a happy corporate employee and those things were fantastic. And at the same time, there's more to life than just continuing to get the dopamine hits and the recognition, and really wanted to have a change and focus on some other things in my life. So hopefully that answers the question. It wasn't too long-winded.
No, I think it was brilliant. The question that came from your response was, what do you mean it wasn't intentional? There's no way you land at this place where you're able to retire at what I would consider 20 years ahead of what most people shoot for.
Yeah. And I think
accident.
Yeah. So, and I guess when I said it wasn't intentional, initially it wasn't intentional. Initially, when I first got started, but once I knew that I had to get more control, Jerome, because there was zero control that I had. Because as an A student, I was doing what I was told. Come in here, work your job. I was working so many hours. I was traveling so much. I didn't have time. Like, you get to a certain point, and I had a lot of conversations with people where you're talking to people that are in these really high paid, high profile type of roles. And you'll say, well, hey, how are you doing on this KPI, which is a key performance indicator in your company, or your management by objectives. And they could tell you to this, like literally down to the comma, where they were on their annual target. And then ask them about, hey, how are things at home? Or how are your kids doing? And, I've been on the road so much, I haven't been able to do any of that. I haven't seen my kid. I haven't talked to my wife earlier, talked to my husband, blah, blah, blah. And I started realizing, wow, man, these are the kinds of things that you can move away from, and you can actually gain more control by having a plan, by executing a plan. And that's what started. I started realizing that I could escape that life, but I guess I kind of kept going. But initially, I was just trying to get more control over my life. And then when I started realizing that the results were there, then it was about, how do I accelerate this? How do I figure out what's the next solution that I need to be able to unlock capital, build new friendships, build new relationships, challenge my thoughts, and then eventually say, look, I'm choosing to come here, or eventually I'm choosing not to come here anymore.
A lot of people want to unlock their ultimate potential but lack the strategy, support, and stamina necessary to achieve their major goals. They often try to overcome these challenges by trying to do it on their own, causing frustration, fatigue, and eventually failure. We have developed a model for a center life, aka the red pill, to help them bolster their beliefs, gain clarity on their path to success, and provide accountability as they take action on their goals. When they take the red pill, they rapidly accelerate attainment of their goals and begin to experience a life of significance and impact. Want to find out more? Hop over to jeromemyers.co. Now, let's get back to the episode. choice. So you
Yeah.
created a situation where you had a choice on whether or not you showed up at the job. You created a situation where you had the choice on how you wanted to allocate your time instead of going into a bunch of different meetings. And you mentioned the word control.
Mm.
Did the real estate help solve that tax issue, or was there something else?
So and this is gonna sound a little bit strange, but hopefully I think you definitely understand this. So the real estate, what it did is, yes, it gave me control. It caused me so much frustration as well, right? Because one of the things that I did not understand was, as someone who is a high paid professional, super busy, constantly, all over, traveling, in the meetings, up early, all this kind of stuff. The real estate gave a lot more control and was able to generate more income, very, what you would say, is tax efficient. At the same time, because I was not a real estate professional, and that once again is an IRS designation, it was creating these big pools of losses that I couldn't do anything with. So real estate, although I really do like it a lot, it was causing me, someone who is a non-real estate professional, high wage earner, my wife was not a real estate professional, it started causing me frustration because, once again, it went back to when I was young. I saw the capital sitting on my annual tax statements that I couldn't do anything with. And I would have had to wait another 4, 5, or 7 years before, or maybe some of the properties I would have, was never going to sell. At least that's what I had in my mind. And I had to figure out, like, how can I unlock this? So I was, as a high wage earner, I was like, okay, well, hang on a second. There's got to be a solution. I found a solution to the control issue. I found a solution to being able to have more recurring revenue. And now I had this big tax problem on my earned income. And so one of the things that helped me to even accelerate this journey to being able to choose what I wanted to do even sooner was being able to figure out another solution to this big problem that I was having, because I was paying a lot. And most people hate this word. It's a 5-letter word, but I was paying a lot in taxes. And so was able to figure out a new solution to help me with that. And by being able to alleviate some of the tax obligation, it then accelerated my ability to choose what I want to do, when I wanted to do it, and with whom I wanted to do it. So yeah, so it was a bit of, so maybe a bit contrarian, because I know I do enjoy real estate, but it caused me a lot of frustration, and I had to figure out how to do that as a high wage earner who was not a tax real estate professional. Sorry.
So what was the thing that you did in order to unlock your
Yeah, so you start
Yes.
building. Yeah, so and I guess this goes back to having a curious mind and looking for different options to say, okay. And right, the very first thing that I thought is, the only thing I can do is invest in my 401k and IRA, because that's what I was told. And when I did that and I saw that that wasn't working, I was like, I need to find another vehicle. So I had that running in the background, and I looked for the next vehicle, and that vehicle was real estate. And then real estate was working really well because it gave me more control. It complemented what I was doing in the 401k, because I didn't want to get rid of that at the time. That's since changed. But I wanted both of those vehicles to work. And then I looked for the next vehicle, which was, how can I create more consistent income, and then passively investing with other people. And then was able to find another, because my mind started opening to new concepts. Like, even for us recovering perfectionists, for those of us who are A students and we know everything, it's like, well, hang on a second. If you just open your mind, you can start to see other possibilities. And so now went from the qualified plans or the 401k, IRA, and then into the real estate, and now into investing with other people. And then eventually got into a sector which I initially didn't really know anything about. And that was into the energy sector, and realized that there was a real need to be able to provide value in the energy sector. And in exchange for providing value and directly investing in investing in direct companies, was able to also not create consistent returns, financial returns, but also helped me to release some of that tax obligation that I had, because then I could use that capital to help invest in other vehicles, right? So what it helped me to do was realize when you have a particular problem. So as a non-real estate professional, high wage earner, I was looking to release that capital. And investing in the energy sector has allowed me to do that. It's also allowed a number of other high paid professionals that are doing that with me. So it's about being able to look at a number of different vehicles, and the one that really helped on the last earned income tax obligation was the energy sector.
So how does it work though? Because I mean, you not only solve this problem for yourself, which is why you started on this journey, right? Creative, curious. I need to see if there's something, because I can't be the only one that is making money, not wanting to pay taxes. I don't own my own business, and I don't spend the majority of my time operating a real estate business. So I can't take advantage of the way the tax code lays out the benefits of real estate investing. So, I mean, your situation was similar to a doctor, an attorney, uh, somebody in sales for like software.
Yep.
There's probably some other people that would fit kind of the same situation, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting. You just started naming my clients. You just forgot professional athletes. They're in there as well. But yes, that's basically the client base that we are serving, because, well, yeah, I mean, you explained it very well, that there are very few very, very few, let's say it that way. I don't want to say none, but very few opportunities that will allow you to invest. You can invest, create consistent returns into the future, and also help to, in exchange for your capital and the it's like everything else, right? It's risk reward. So you take the risk, you also have the reward, and being able to do that against your earned income is one of the benefits of investing in this type of an investment in the energy space.
Okay. So push my money in. I get to get the tax benefits against my active income, right?
Yep.
But I'm doing this passively, so it's no different than if I was putting money in a syndication or some other thing that people who invest in real estate would be familiar with. But instead of it being trapped in this passive losses situation, it's moved and allowing me to reduce my taxable income, which I can then reallocate that, because I think depending on where you are, taxes is like one of the highest expenses that you can have against your net worth. Like,
Yep. Yes, you're absolutely correct. And so, as you're explaining this, Jerome, I'm thinking to myself, wow, Jerome, you get it absolutely 100%. And so one of the things, if I just use an example, someone who is, because this is an example, right? You and I are talking about examples. We are not giving anybody kind of tax advice or any of that kind of stuff. So people, of course, you're going to speak to your professionals, and Jerome and I would both recommend that you speak to your tax professional to talk about these ideas, right? If you are someone who lives in California, for instance, or you live in New Jersey, and you are a doctor, you're a high-paid sales executive, a middle-level manager of a large multinational corporation, and you're earning large sums, then it's highly possible that you're paying anywhere between 40 to 50% in tax, right? In federal and state tax. And so when you have the opportunity to place an investment, I mean, there's a lot we could go into, but you place an investment, and depending on how it is structured, you can get I was talking to someone earlier, if you're in a 40% tax bracket, you could potentially get up to a 40% return in helping you alleviate some of the tax benefit that you have, right? And every situation is different. It's a matter of being able to sit down, talk to someone, but it's not uncommon. I mean, we've had investors that have had 40% in terms of helping them on their tax, on their earned income. And so it's one of those things. Each situation is different. But one of the things we found is if you are not a real estate professional, and you are not a real estate professional, your spouse is not a real estate professional, and you want to be able to alleviate or free up capital so that you can do other things, like choose to continue to go into your job, or choose to not go into your job anymore, or choose to donate to an organization or an association that you've wanted to do, or choose to travel with your family around the world because you've always wanted to buy everyone a business class or a first class ticket. These are the types of things that we're seeing people do. And it's great to be a part of those kinds of conversations, really sit down, understand how high wage earners are living. Because I think a lot of times, Jerome, people think that just because you are a high wage earner, that you don't have any kind of sacrifice, or you shouldn't, like, you're living a great life. And the reality is like I said earlier, man, there's so many times where you're just not even, people aren't even home, or they're home, but they're not present because they're looking at other things. And many times it's because they feel like there's a financial stress that they've got to continue to go out and do more. You've got to go out and make sure that you get even more of the bonus. But the problem is, when you're earning more of the bonus and you're not a real estate professional and you don't own a business and your spouse isn't a real estate professional, you're going to end up paying another X percentage on every dollar that you earn. And that's just kind of at the end of the day, you're working harder, you're doing 100% of the work, and you're bringing home 50% of the reward. Just doesn't feel right. Yeah, it just doesn't feel right. Yeah,
but
it doesn't feel
normal. Right. Is that normal?
One of the things I want to help people understand is that many people are doing that every day, and they don't even realize, like, you're doing that, and there can be a faster way to you to be able to be free to choose what it is that you want to do. And don't get me wrong, I mean, you may choose to continue to go back into your job every day, but you're going to go into your job feeling very, very differently, because you know that the things that are important to you, the ability to send your kid to the school that you want to send them to, or be ready, prepare for college, or, like I said earlier, be ready to take that trip, business class, to Europe, to Asia, wherever you want to do, and do it on your own terms. There's a faster way. You don't have to do 9 years like I was doing. It can be a lot shorter than 9 years. I mean, you can get there faster. You just have to be able to connect with the information, have access to the information, be able to ask the questions that are usually the questions that keep you the most uncomfortable. I know that happened to me a lot, because when you think that the only thing that's out there for you is investing in the stock market or investing in real estate, now there's a lot of other things out there. I tend to see that, your business owners are a little bit more open to that, because they're already doing things that are a little bit different. And at the same time, for those of us who have been in the corporate life, we know in our gut that there's something else out there. It takes a little longer, but you got to be there, and you got to ask the questions so that you can get clear on making the decisions that are going to benefit you and your family. Jerome, I heard this thing the other day. I'd never heard it before. And so, of course, I'm sharing it with you because I care so much about you and your audience. They were talking about Colin Powell, and said when he used to make decisions, like really major decisions in his life, it was the 40-70 principle. I don't even know are you familiar with it? The 40-70 principle?
40 and 70 don't equal 100.
No, they don't. No, they don't. But someone who's a recovering perfectionist and an A student, like, you go out and you study hard, and you got to make sure you get every single thing right. Well, when he was making these major decisions that affected hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives, he applied his 40-70 principle. And he said, I am never going to make a major decision with less than 40% of the information and no more than 70% of the information. And I thought, that's pretty awesome, right? Because less than 40% means you don't have enough data, you don't have enough information. And if you go beyond 70, then guess what you're doing? You're falling into that potential analysis paralysis, because then you start looking for the perfect bit of information or data to make that decision. And he realized that the best make the decisions based on imperfect information. But what they do is make sure that you get the answers that you need that allow you to sleep well at night, knowing that you've asked the questions that you need to ask so that you can make the decision on imperfect information. And that's a concept that took me a while, because as a recovering perfectionist, a student, I always wanted to try and get the answers right. But when I realized that I can start getting the answers that I need to make me feel well, sleep well at night, I started seeing the acceleration of being closer and closer and closer and closer to that then marked ability to choose to exit or not. Right. And I think that's a concept that's helped me a lot. I didn't realize that, but now I have this principle that I can apply to things, and also it's something that I believe is helpful for others.
So I got two more questions because we're coming up on time. And the first one is
Man, this goes by so fast.
you you've teased us, right? So the person out there, they're like, can this guy help me? Like, what do I need to do? Like, who are the people? You say athletes, doctors, attorneys, like, but how do I know if I should reach out to Billy and find out more about this thing that helped accelerate his path to retirement without investing in his 401k?
Yeah, so we help a person, and there's kind of two ways. I would say primarily two ways to know first and foremost if we're able to help you with the situation that you have. If you are ready to learn more and be able to make a change, first of all, the person based on income needs to have made $200,000 as an individual the previous 2 years, and is expected to make $200,000 this year as an individual. So 200,000 the previous 2 years and 200,000 this year, or as a couple, 300,000 the previous 2 years and 300,000 is reasonably expected to generate this current year as well. That's one way. The other way is based on net worth. And so the other person that we're helping has $1 million of net worth, not including their primary residence. And those are the two different criteria. There's a third where you can take a series 7, 65, or 82 that's really based on education. But primarily the people in any of those three criteria, it's someone that's known as an accredited investor. So an accredited investor, once again, is either income. So as a couple making $300,000 the previous 2 years, 300,000 this year. Individually is 200,000 the previous 2 and 200,000 this year. $1 million of net worth, not including your home. And the last way is based on an exam. So that's really the first criteria. So if you meet those criteria and you're looking to know more, then I think it would make sense for you to at least find out more about it and things like that. But that's the first criteria. If you're not meeting those criteria at this point in time, that's not the person that we're able to help with the company.
Okay. And then
Does that make sense?
do you have any literature, or should they like email you? Like how does this work?
Yeah. So, well, Jerome, that's a really good question. I'm very excited that you asked the question because we have been working very, very hard. The team's been working very, very hard. And we've just recently, I think by the time this is live, we will have gone live with our new website. And our website, actually, when you go to the website, you will find an area just to find out more about the company, what we're doing, who we're serving, and then if it makes sense for you, there is a way to see if you qualify and connect with us, and from there we'll connect with you. So, well, I guess I can tell you. So it's if you go to First Gen CP, that's first and then GENCP, as in First Generation Capital Partners. Go to firstgencp.com. And when you go there, take a look at the website, go around, and then if it makes sense to you, we'd love to have a conversation, and you can see if it's the right fit.
And so on the website, is there a like contact us form, or is it a link to Calendly? How does it work?
You're so good at this kind of stuff, man. Now when you go to the website, there you will see I think there's a button literally when you get there, and you can learn more. You can find there's a tab. There is a section around invest. So once you've had a chance to look at the website, see what's there, if you go to the invest section of the website, you can go there, fill in your information, and we would love to find out more about you and be able to help and start to build a relationship with you. But that's the best way to do. Go to firstgencp.com when you're there. Check out the website, but specifically if you go to the invest section, you can find out more about how you can leave the information, answer a couple of questions, and then the team will be in touch with you very soon.
Billy, thank you so much for joining me on the Dreamcatchers podcast, brother. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for the opportunity to share life with you. I think of our trip, right?
Oh yeah.
about a month ago. I think it was on this day, we were sitting on a catamaran in
Yes,
the
we were.
Caribbean Sea, doing math. Neither one of us are very good at math, but we're doing math, and
Looking at the
it was
pitons.
really,
Les
yeah.
pitons.
It was something that was so rewarding for me, and I know that you traveled over 20 hours to be a part of that, and it's not lost on me, man. I appreciate you for who you are and the work that you're doing in the world. I think it is a worthy pursuit, and I think you're going to help so many people figure out that they're doing 100% of the work for 50% of the return, and there are solutions out there that can help them keep more of what they earn.
Yep.
So, guys, we got all of that down in the show notes. Hop over to the website and do yourself a favor and get in Billy's world, because he's going to show you some things that you're not going to find through traditional means. It's if the system isn't set up to help you retire, it's to help keep you in the system for longer, so that things can be funded as a result of you paying more taxes than you have to. So, Billy, thank you so much, sir.
Hey, Jerome, thank you very much. I love what you're doing, man. It's so much positive energy, positive impact done from a place of love. And I wish you continued success. And I feel very privileged to not only be here on the podcast with you today, but also be a part of your journey and your life. So I appreciate you, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you. To the listeners, your dreams should be real. We'll talk soon.
Thank you for joining the tribe today. We would love to hear from you. Please don't forget to rate, like, and share. Perhaps someone you know could benefit from what we've discussed. Until the next time, remember that your dreams should be real.